How are you going to be a porn star in 2 days?
Okay, focus, because that's all on video.
Right.
Oh, no.
It's on video! Oh, and you can say. Okay, let's go. Side one, you guys have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Alright, hello. This is our opening statement. And we're sitting here to dispute the archaic punishment that is a capital punishment, or a more fitting title would be the death penalty. 20% of the world still uses this practice, with most of the countries being third world countries. However, there are 2 countries, first world countries, that still haven't caught up with the times, and that is Japan and the United States of America. I wonder why this is. Does it make us feel good that we implement the eye for an eye rule? Perhaps we are getting too emotionally invested and not looking at this from an objective standpoint. We need to really look on why exactly killing an individual is viewed as a positive, and also understand that the victims, oh boy, that's fine, when the computer turns off. To look at this from an objective standpoint, we need to really look on why exactly killing an individual is viewed as a positive, and also understand that the victims are not healed by this death. Since emotion is so high, this is a hot topic for debate. But with a pragmatic approach, we hope one day mankind could look back on the death penalty as something we have outgrown intellectually.
Sassy hamster.
Okay, Brandon, go ahead.
Hello there. I'm debating on behalf of the death penalty. And I feel that we should be looking at this issue on the side of the family of the victims that have been murdered by, let's say, a serial killer, or, feel as though that it should be in place. And,
That's it?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Going back to the first side, you guys have 4 minutes to present 4 arguments. Please go ahead.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, Brandon, because my first statement, as the family of the victim, the death penalty is of course something that they feel they need. They have that right. They feel it is their right to have this closure so they can finally move on. However, the question is, do they move on? Do the scars begin to heal? There's no conclusive evidence that a person can move on after a heinous crime. And if they can, it takes years of therapy to finally come into acceptance. So who benefits from the court-ordered death if not the victim's family? Who or what are these laws catering to? Perhaps the outsiders looking in. Perhaps it makes communities, states, and even the rest of the country feel better. Our team would rebuttal that by saying laws should not be made to just adhere to make people feel better, and look at the big picture. Also, if the populace has their satisfaction that the guilty needs that satisfaction that the guilty has suffered, I will pose this question: is death a really grand punishment, or is sitting in a jail cell your whole life a more satisfying punishment? If I was faced with those 2 choices, I know what I would pick.
My first argument is going to be botched executions. The death penalty is legal in 35 states in the USA, and I took all this data from 1890 to nowadays. 7.1% of executions are botched, which means that the executioner doesn't go through with official protocol, which means that the death is prolonged or painful for the victim. 4% of executions are on innocence, which, if you take the data since 1890, is 9,000 people. 8 states allow electrocution, 3 states allow gas chambers, 3 states allow hanging, and 2 states allow firing squad. Some of these methods might seem outdated, but in January of 2013, a Virginia man was electrocuted. Number 2 is that it's an out-of-date practice. 140 countries have abolished the death penalty, seeing that it's just too harsh. Only 58 countries still have it now. The cost per execution is $308 million, and that's 10 times more than keeping somebody for life in prison. No evidence has been shown that the death penalty actually deters from people causing violent crimes, and in comparison to medieval executions, they seem cruel and outdated, but in the end it's the same result.
Cool. China, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, and the USA are the top 5 executions in the world. I look at that and the US stands out to me. Why is it in the same list as these countries, in front of Yemen and Sudan, these third world countries? Would you want to say, by approving the death penalty, to risk our country's stand on peace and equality, tarnish that reputation that we've built throughout the world by accepting the death penalty within our country? That's it.
Okay. Great. So there's the 4 arguments. Now, Perella and Brandon, you guys have the opportunity to rebut those arguments. Please go ahead. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Brandon, do you have anything to go based on what they just said?
Yeah. Okay. It is like what all criminals fear. If you read about Bundy's life in prison, waiting 9 years for his execution, you see that the man executed every single legal point he and his lawyers could think of, all in an attempt to spare him execution. He defended himself in prison interviews by blaming pornography and causing his uncomfortable teenage libido, and for causing him to think of women as objects and not humans. He attempted to have his death sentence commuted to life without parole by explaining that it was all pornography's fault and that had never existed. He would have been a good person.
Jails are full. Jails are too full. So what do? We should kill people who got in there by killing in the first place. It makes no sense to have murderers living lives taking our tax-paying dollars just so they can sit in a cell, eat some okay food, and just keep living for 40, 50 more years. When someone's life was cut short too soon because of their heinous, immoral acts.
Word.
That was pretty good.
What the hell? Is there anything else? You guys have a couple more minutes.
What else does our website say? No, that would come off the top of my head.
I just
That
had
was
to
the
say
website.
word. I'm like, what? Oh man.
You
Yeah,
say
your
that
voice in there.
that it doesn't put fear into criminals. It might not until afterwards, but it will make an example. Making examples of people who do cause fear. Criminals that murder, they hide, they're cowards. So if they actually have the idea in the head that they might get caught, they might get murdered, that themselves, it would cause less murders. I'm so behind on this. This is what happened.
I got that on tape.
Perfect.
And finally, not all styles of the death penalty have to be painful and prolonging. There is the lethal injection. If done right, can be painless and quick.
All right. So now we have a minute of prep time where you guys have the opportunity to think about what the other one said, and then we'll get into an open debate for 5 minutes. You just joined because you know we didn't show.
Do I stop recording?
Yeah, you could stop if you want.